right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Reading, Writing, and Ralph. I hope you all had a lovely Labor Day. It is the start of September, so fall this month. I'm ready for that weather. Tonight, we welcome author Paul Carlino. So, if you think that name sounds familiar, you're probably right because years ago, he was actually the cover story of The Zebra. Tonight, we're discussing his book, The Year We Ruined Our Lives. His family lived the van life and tracked through Central America hundreds and hundreds of miles. And so we're going to learn all about that story and that whole experience. They actually live down there now. So that is also another great experience for you to learn about. But before we get there, I want to thank our sponsors, Kathleen and Eddie Arthur, Hearts of Love Fund. So something super exciting. Their website just launched. You can go donate, support them, learn more about them at arthurheartsoflove.org. All right, so with that, I'm going to welcome Ralph. Hi, Ralph. How are you?
Great, Grace. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. It's a little overcast, but it's cooled down, so I'm not complaining.
Well, it rained on and off all day here today, which is a bummer. That means no golf, but
Yeah.
I got to stay inside and catch up on a lot of odds and ends, and get ready for the show. So
Yeah, perfect. So give us a brief intro about Paul.
well, yeah, Paul, a fascinating story. I mean, I think about simple road trips with children, which would involve 5 hours of traveling, and you get the constant, are we there yet? Are we there yet? So I can't imagine how you prepare yourself to go on a years long journey, right? And through some pretty rough and rugged areas of the world. So this is going to be an interesting story to hear. So I look forward to it. It's the year that almost wrecked our lives. So it's going to be an interesting, hopefully humorous tale. And we've got
Yes,
some
I know
illustrations today.
yes, we have some photos to go with it. We have some trivia. As always, be the first to answer correctly, and you will win a free copy of Paul's book. So, with that, you guys know how the rest goes. Ralph, I'm going to let you and Paul take it away.
Great. Appreciate it, Grace.
Hey,
Hey,
Ralph.
Paul, how are? Good to see you again.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a veteran of the zebra. Yes, we did a story, a feature on your family a couple of years back, I guess it was. Can you hear me okay? I don't know if we lost the sound. Paul?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me? I was saying that you're a veteran of the zebra. Your family was featured a couple of years back, so you're familiar with the
Yeah, yeah.
newspaper. What it does.
Mary had reached out to us when we came back from the trip to write something about it, and we ended up being on the front page, which was a surprise, but was pretty cool driving around Alexandria, seeing our faces on Mount Vernon Ave, and all the other places where that zebra box was. So it was pretty neat.
And they're still there. So tell the audience about yourself. Give us a peek into your background, what you did, and what your career was.
So I grew up in New Jersey, um, and ended up going to law school. I had an aunt who lived in Richmond, and always loved coming down there and seeing Virginia. It just seemed like such a different place than than New Jersey.
Yes.
So ended up going to law school at William and Mary in Williamsburg, and that's where I met my wife, Rebecca, and we settled in Alexandria, Old Town. We bought a house in Old Town, which we still own, even though we don't live there.
Yeah.
Loved the neighborhood. It was convenient to DC, where I worked for the Office of Chief Counsel at the Internal Revenue Service for 20 something years, and the kids went to Alexandria City Public Schools, and it was really great. It was an overall ideal situation for us there.
Great, great. Yeah, as you and I spoke, I had an opportunity to work for the IRS after grad school, and I turned it down. The office was out on Holbrook, Long Island, which was 50 miles from nowhere. So I didn't want to end up, living my entire life out at the end of Long Island. But anyway, moved on. So how did you, let's talk about the trip. How do you
Yeah.
envision a trip like this, plan for a trip like this, and then embark on it with your family? What were you thinking?
Well, we were kind of just, living the good life in DC, good jobs, good friends, good neighborhood with the kids, good kids, they had good friends. And then in 2008, we went to Ecuador. So Rebecca could do some volunteer work. She was an immigration attorney practicing in the DC area. And Mai was 5 at the time, and Jonah was 2, our 2 children. And neither set of grandparents was happy that we were taking the grandkids away from them for 4 months. So in order to keep them kind of involved in our lives, I blogged about our time in Ecuador, and that turned out to be a lot of fun for me. And a lot of people seemed to enjoy my writing and the stories. Overall, it was a big hit. So when we decided to drive, when it was decided to take this trip to Mexico and Central America, blogging was kind of what it seemed natural, right? I'd done it before; it was fun. I was going to do it again, and um, and that kind of gave the impetus for the book, right? Everyone was like, "Oh, you should write a book. You should write a book." So,
You
so
did.
eventually, when we moved to Mexico, I had the time, and I did. The we'd always enjoyed traveling, and the decision to take a year-long trip was kind of a conflation of different things. Um, it started, years before when Rebecca was in Europe traveling after college, doing that backpack thing, and she met someone who was on a year-long backpacking trip, and that kind of uh, pivotal moment for her, right? She's like, this is what I want to do, and of course, I got to go to Virginia, and that was like another foreign country to me, going from New Jersey. So, but all that kind of got put on the back burner with getting married, having jobs, having the kids, um, the routine, all of that. But during that trip to Ecuador, we had a chance encounter with a woman on the beach who was traveling for a year with her kids. And that kind of reignited the flame for Rebecca. She's like, "Hey, we can do this." Shortly after we got back to Alexandria from Ecuador, we were on the playground with our kids' preschool teacher, Taxamat Cooperative Preschool, down there off of the GW Parkway, and the director of the school said, uh, "Middle school kids, they should just go to a farm instead of a classroom." So, Rebecca and I locked eyes, and we were like, our kids are going to be in middle school someday. Maybe that's when we'll go on our year-long trip. So at that point, that was 7 years in the future because Maya was 5, right? So we had a lot of time to plan for it, which was definitely helpful. But those were the kind of the 2 defining events that set the plan in motion.
Well, and I tell you, it's interesting. I don't even how do you I don't even know how you deal with the schooling aspect of this, but just the pre-trip planning. I mean, I know what it's like to plan for a month away, and you end up with 19 suitcases and all this stuff. How do you deal with a year? I mean, how do you go about organizing that and getting everything together, and and keeping it down to the bare minimum?
Yeah, well, initially, the it was just this idea to travel for the year, and then it became this idea to travel in the van for the year, which was kind of a series of unrelated events that hatched that plan. Um, but once we had the
Yeah, I think we're getting a little bit of delay on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
But, once we had the idea that we were going to travel in a van, you can't put, and it was a VW camper van, which we'll see some pictures of later. So it was about, less than 100 square feet of
wow.
um,
Wow.
living space. So, we couldn't take 15 suitcases with us.
Oh, there it is.
We, yeah, I believe that's the first day that we drove home with the van after purchasing it from a guy up outside of Baltimore.
Wow.
And I think the next slide will, if you put that next slide up now, we can actually see. Yeah. So there's, that's the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, the bedroom. And there's a refrigerator, that little gray box with the orange strap over it. So, we needed to be pretty precise in what we were bringing and where it was going to go.
Well,
There's
that's tight.
another view of that. There's another view of that of our house, I'll say. That bench right there pulled down to be sleeping arrangements, sleep two folks in each evening, and then there was a the top of the van pushed up for another little loft sleeping area where two people could sleep pretty comfortably. So it was
Made it
tight,
work.
but we made it work. Yeah.
So, family, knowing what family dynamics can be, right? You live in a house. If there's a little bit of an issue, people can find their space.
Yeah.
How do you do that on the road in a situation like that?
Yeah. Well, um, my daughter was 13 at the time, and when Barbara, the school director, said kids should be sent to the farm, we didn't realize she meant by themselves. I mean, I think Maya of all of us, I mean, Rebecca and I were, kind of set free, like unchained from the desk and had so much freedom of time and creativity. So no problems. I think it was most difficult for Maya. Being stuffed into that little box with her younger brother and, driving, to very hot places with no AC.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
in a mess
crazy.
sometimes, sometimes the van gets that lived in look when four people are in there. Um, but, they, I think they definitely bonded over the experience, Maya and Jonah there reading before bed. And, and I think now, Maya takes pride in the fact that, she drove to Panama in a van and, um, she
It's
did it.
it's quite the experience. I'm gonna um, I'm gonna give the first trivia question, but I want you to start thinking about the next topic. I want to talk about what your uh, pre-trip expectations were,
Sure.
and how you then came up with the book that said the year that almost ruined your lives and why. So we have two trivia questions tonight. First person in with the correct answer, and yes, you can look it up if you choose to. The first question is: there's many of places in Central America where you can view both the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean, but there's only one spot in the continental United States from which you can see both the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean. So where is that location? So it's kind of an interesting answer, but I hope people find it. So what were the expectations? You're going away for a year. You're going on a road trip. You're going on a van. You don't know how it's going to hold up. You don't know what kind of situations you're going to get into. You hear horror stories of crime and everything all over the place. What were the expectations? What were you thinking when you set out?
Yeah. Well, I think initially we were really, trying to maximize, the time, right? Like we've got a year, let's go as far as we can. We were planning to go all the way to the tip of Argentina, kind of the end of the world. And then a friend of ours did some math and we realized that we'd have to be driving on average like 250 miles a day. And we didn't want to do that. So we modified our plan to at least get to South America. But we didn't get there either, like, the first place we got in Mexico, we spent a week there. The idea of just getting someplace to get someplace kind of lost traction very quickly, and we were happy to take it, go with the flow, really, just take it a day at a time, and if we didn't want to leave that day, we didn't leave, because we didn't really have any place that we needed to be. We also, had high expectations that this was going to be a really, really rich learning experience for the kids. And it was, just not in the way that we expected that it was going to be. We were products of the public school systems. The kid had been in the public school systems. We kind of formalized or envisioned our homeschool plan looking something like that, right? 30 minutes of math a day, 30 minutes of reading, 30 minutes of language study. And then we got on the road, and who didn't want to do math, and who didn't want to do read, and who didn't want to, study Spanish. So Rebecca and I just kind of threw up our hands and were like, oh, whatever. But converting the grocery bill from pesos to US dollars, or from Guatemalan quetzales to US dollars, that's learning. Looking at a map and figuring out kilometers from here to there, and converting that to miles is learning. Seeing these different places and how people are living, and the economics of a place, and what things cost relative to what things cost in the US, and what jobs people are working. It's kind of learning without realizing that you're learning.
The cultural experience is learning too.
Yeah. Seeing, monkeys, outside of a zoo, actually in the trees, right above your camp, so once, Rebecca and I kind of got comfortable with, okay, learning doesn't have to be from a book, it was a great learning experience. And so ultimately, we were satisfied, but I admit it was stressful initially, like, oh, we're doing such a disservice to the kids doing this, because they're gonna be in fifth grade forever.
Yeah.
Regarding the safety thing, we hear a lot about it in the US, how gang violence and government corruption down here, and all that, and that is true, that stuff does exist. But before we left, we did a lot of planning, of course, and part of that involved reading blogs and other information from people who were doing the same thing, and then none of them were dead. They kind of outlined some common sense precautions that you could take to avoid trouble. Don't drive at night was one of our big rules. Don't go in places that look dangerous, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of common sense things that we could do that removed us from dangerous situations. Don't wear, expensive looking jewelry, and don't leave valuables in your plain sight in your vehicle when you're not with the vehicle. So, we didn't experience, actually early in the trip, we run into a couple of waiters at a restaurant in Mexico who kind of confirmed, they're like, tourists are not the target. It's the businesses that the tourists frequent. The tourists bring the money to the businesses, and then the gangs can, kind of shake down the businesses. But we didn't encounter any instances where we felt physically threatened or in danger.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So how did I know there's a couple times in the book where you reference, I think one is was How Did I Survive, or something like that, or How Do We Survive? But at what point did you get to the way you named the book, The Year That Ruined Our Lives, and why was that?
So the book's called The Year We Ruined Our Lives, and it confuses some people because we actually made our lives better, I think, by taking the trip and realizing that there was more to kind of life than what we were doing, right? And after the trip, we went back to Alexandria, but eventually we moved to Mexico. And so the name of the book, The Year We Ruined Our Lives, refers to our lives before. We had wonderful lives in Alexandria, like I talked about before. We had a house that we loved. We were in a neighborhood that we loved in Old Town. I had a good job. Rebecca loved what she was doing. The kids were healthy, happy, all of that. And then we went on this trip, and when we that kind of just had a lot of freedom, to experience different things and cultures, as you mentioned, Ralph. And our plan was always to go back to Alexandria, which we did. But when we got back, the life that seemed so great before seemed like it had a lot more possibilities, right? So my wife likes to refer to the movie Madagascar 3. I don't know if you've seen the movie, right? But a bunch of animals, zoo animals, somehow get shipped mistakenly to Africa, and they spend the whole franchise of movies trying to get back to the zoo. And then they get there in the last movie, and they're like, "Wait a minute, this is a lot smaller than I remember, and I can't touch you, and we can't do all the things together that we used to do." Um,
I don't know why we're paused. I think there's a little bit of a delay, coming up from Central America there. Yeah, it's a play on what really got ruined, and you're right, it's the ruining of a life that you thought was great. Sometimes you just don't know until you experience something. You know, George Harrison has a great line in one of his songs: "The further you go from home, the less you know." And certainly that seems to be the case that you experienced with your trips. One of the things.
I'm just gonna hop in really quick.
Yeah.
Paul was frozen. It looks like he has removed himself from the studio. Let's see if we can get him back on really quick.
See if we can also.
There we go. Hello. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, here we go. Yeah, if that happens again, just come out and come back in.
Let's go through the some of the slides that you have, and so the folks watching get a good experience on this.
So Mexico, I can spend the entire rest of the time talking about Mexico. We expected to go through Mexico in 1 month. We ended up spending about 5 months there. Many highlights, but if I had to pick one, and I did have to pick one, this was it. In Playa Escobilla in Oaxaca State, we were just in time for a mass sea turtle nesting, and you can see behind Rebecca there, hundreds of sea turtles coming up onto the beach to lay their eggs and dig a hole, lay their eggs, bury that hole, and go back into the surf. It was just an amazing, amazing thing. Here's another picture of Maya and Jonah there. It went on all day, 6 a.m. till until dark. Just turtles coming. Our next country on the southern border of Mexico is Guatemala. Guatemala has a lot of Mayan ruins. Here we are in front of one of the temples at Tikal. This is near Lake Petén. A lot of people, visit Lake Atitlan in Guatemala, and we did as well. But I really like Lake Petén. It's close to this Mayan archaeological site. The water is super clean for swimming, which is not always the case in developing countries. And this is in December. We're in shorts and short sleeves there, and so we spent Christmas here as well. So it was a good memory for this time.
Now this is an interesting photo here.
an immigration attorney, and many of her clients were from El Salvador, and talked about a lot of the violence that they had encountered there. So that kind of put her antenna up, and El Salvador was kind of on our list of countries to not spend too much time in. But then one of her clients offered the keys to his beach house there for free, so we went, and we actually had a great time in El Salvador. It's very clean country. The beaches were great. It had a beautiful mountainous pine forest, which was a nice respite from the hot and humid temperatures there. And they take secure parking very seriously. This was the secured parking lot at one of the hotels that we stayed in El Salvador, in a city called Santa Ana. Our van did not get messed with.
I would expect.
It's a toss-up between Nicaragua and Mexico as what was our favorite country.
Wow.
Nicaragua is advertised as the next Costa Rica, which Costa Rica is a pretty popular destination, vacation spot for Americans, for U.S. citizens. They got a lot of kind of adrenaline fueled sports, but you can't go sledding down an active volcano in Costa Rica, and you can do that in Leon, Nicaragua,
Wow.
which is what we're about to do here. This is on Rebecca's birthday, and she specifically requested this as her birthday gift. And she's the one there taking the selfie. One of the other things that we did in Nicaragua is we volunteered to work on a farm. The farm was really just kind of in developmental stages. There was a lot of trees, a lot of down trees, and the farm work pretty much consisted of hacking things down with machetes. And here's Jonah is holding a banana, the trunk of a banana tree with his machete, and it looks like he's having a pretty good time.
Yeah, it does.
Costa Rica, Maya is an adrenaline junkie, so we pretty much acted like tourists when we hit Costa Rica and did some of those things that people do when they go on vacation: zip lining, climbing trees. Here we're about to go off a Tarzan swing. I'm not a huge fan of heights, so that I'm not excited in this picture. I'm more scared in this picture, but the family loved it. And the other thing that we did in Costa Rica, because the volunteer thing on the farm went so well in Nicaragua, we arranged another one in Costa Rica. Our hosts in Costa Rica had this idea to create an organic farm where people could come and stay and work, but they needed to build accommodations. So we helped build one of their prototype floating houses that they wanted to populate their property with, and this is the bones of a floating house after about 2 weeks of hammering and nailing and screwing and it floated. Panama, everyone has heard of the Panama Canal, but a friend of a friend who we stayed with as we were leaving the U.S. told us about an opportunity to line handle on a ship that was crossing the Panama Canal. Now, line handling is, by law, you have to have one person on each corner of the boat to secure the lines that secure the boat in the canal so it doesn't get jostled around as the locks fill up and empty. And some boats don't have 4 adults to do that, so they take on volunteer line handlers. So we went to the marina on the Caribbean side, and we hooked up with Captain Sandro there, who was sailing his ship with his family through the canal, his catamaran, and he needed a couple of extra adults to line handle. So we spent 3 nights on the boat with him and his family, and here he's showing Maya how to we're approaching one of the locks on the Caribbean side, and the next.
That must be at night going through the canal. Well, what an experience. just beautiful. Certainly some great memories locked in that, no pun intended. And this looks like they're almost at the completion of the journey, I would guess. But again, quite the experience. Unreal. Many of us would love to enjoy that, going through
Yeah,
those that kind of
Paul,
thing.
you seem to have frozen again, so remove yourself from the studio, come back in, and Ralph and I'll keep flipping through these photos.
Yeah,
Oh, there we go. He's back.
he's
Yeah, I'm
back.
back. So, yeah, that was here. We are on the bow of the catamaran as we go through the canal. So, then we had to turn around and we went through all those countries again. And on the threshold of driving back into the United States, this is on the bridge between Nuevo Laredo in Mexico and Laredo, Texas, where we crossed back into the U.S. Wesley threw what I call a temperature tantrum. It overheated. It's about 100 degrees on the bridge. Stuck in traffic, and the engine coolant tank just exploded. But we were stuck on the bridge, and we had to get across. So everybody got out and pushed, except Maya, who someone had to steer the van, and that was Maya. Maya was selected to steer, so her first driving experience was across an international bridge.
Wow. Now you're back in the U.S.
Yeah, that's a photo right before we come back into the U.S. in San Miguel de Allende, where we are currently living. Yeah, and we live in San Miguel.
Wow. That's quite the experience, and I'll tell you. I have one daughter that's living the camper life right now. She's been at it for a number of years and doesn't look like it's going to slow up anytime soon when she enjoys it. So you're back in
Good
the
for her.
not back in the States. You come back to the States. You relocate as an expat now down to Mexico. What's next for you?
No.
You're okay. We can hear you.
I guess we're just waiting for it to come back.
No,
So I didn't catch the end of your question, Ralph.
What's next? What's next? Another book? Another adventure? Are you ever going to make the bottom of South America? What's next? I don't know if he froze up again.
I'm going to come back on. I'm going to remove him real quick.
Okay.
Still don't have anyone who answered that trivia question. Ralph
tough.
said this was a tricky one. I got a lot of answers for places in Central America, but I need this one location in the United States.
But in 2 weeks' time, we have Kevin Keating back with his second book, Waiting for the Sign 2. Again, a continuation of the experiences he had in securing the autographs of some renowned and the best baseball players of all time, and the stories that go along with that. He was one of our early.
It looks like Paul's back, so
Paul's back.
Paul, can you hear us?
So
I
what's
apologize
next?
for the unstable internet connection.
No worries. You're in Mexico. We're talking internationally. I think we're doing pretty well as is so far.
Good.
So you come back home. You relocate to Mexico. What's next? You're going to get to the bottom of South America. You're going to go to the Antarctica. What's next?
Well, Ralph, we just dropped Maya off at Bryn Mawr College this summer.
Okay.
So we've got, the year out of public school didn't seem to hurt her. We've got Jonah now in entering his senior year in high school. So I'd love to get back on the road. We still have the van, and I left the book kind of open-ended, right? I end it where we just moved to Mexico. So seems like there's another book to be written.
Yeah, I'd like to see you get to the bottom of South America and what your experiences will be. Paul, it's been great. It was great having you. Good speaking with you. I enjoyed the feature a few years ago and reading about your family. And best of luck to you, and keep up the good work down there.
I appreciate it, Ralph. I really do. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, great show. I love
And we'll
seeing
see you
all
in
of those
2.
pictures.
Yes, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yes, we'll see everyone in 2 weeks with Kevin Keating. Yeah, I guess, Ralph, do we have any more details on your October show
Um, yes,
at
you can go
Gadsby's
onto
Tavern?
the Gadsby Museum website. Tickets are available. The show was from 7 to 9 p.m. It's Mystery at the Museum. The Zebra Press is one of the co-sponsors of the event, and it's going to be exciting night. It's going to be exciting and full of surprises.
Yep, I'm ready for it. I'm excited. I hope everyone enjoyed tonight's show. I know we were talking to Paul from Mexico, so that was fantastic. Thank you for the patience
Yes,
with
and by
technical
the way,
difficulties.
yeah, the show on the 15th of October will be a 2-hour live broadcast, so people can
Yes.
watch it on YouTube, I guess, or Facebook. So it's going to
Yep,
be a
it'll
live.
be a big one. I'm excited for it. And until we get there, Ralph, be the good news in someone's life.
Thank you.